G'day, Hawks fans. From the Talking Hawks, this is the Round 3 2022 preview. Hawthorn take on Carlton at 1:10 p.m. on Sunday, April 3rd. Chris is alongside me, mate, and if we had said that game of the round was between these two teams about a month ago, we probably would have scoffed, but both 2-0 and flying. How are you, mate?
Yes, I'm fantastic, and like you said, unexpected highlight of the round. So looking forward to who knows what could happen in this game. We could come away with the chocolates.
Yeah, we absolutely could. Well, that opens up the first question. So for all the fans that are jumping in, let us know, how confident are you that we can knock off the Blue Baggers? We know they're off to a fantastic start, but this is Carlton. At the end of the day, we haven't beaten another team more times since 2005 than we have the Blues. So if that's not bogey team, I don't know what is. How are your confidence levels, man?
Increasing. Like you said, I sort of look at the matchups. I think Carlton are absolutely flying. I think they're heading in the right direction, so kudos to them. But looking at the matchups and where we can win this game, I think we're looking all right. How about yourself?
I'm a bit like Paul here, who's just jumped in the comments, more excited than I should be. I feel the same like I did against Port Adelaide as we're going to talk ourselves into all the amazing things and what we said last week, not that we're here to toot our own horns, but what we said last week on how this game could come true could also happen against the Blues. The beautiful thing about having such an even competition is that everyone's got a weakness and everyone's got something to exploit. And I think the Blues have got a couple that we can't wait to get stuck into tonight. So Hawks fans, let us know, how do you think we beat the Blues? How do you think the Blues beat us? What are your concerns? What are your worries? Get them all in that comment section. But we know the Port Adelaide talk is behind us, Chris, but you weren't available for our review. So the one question before we fully move into the Blues was, how was your feeling after the Port win and how much confidence does that give you leading into the next game?
Yeah, like you said, it was very interesting based on the key stats. And although they went against us as far as the trends go, I felt like we controlled the game. So if that's the new trend that Sam's trying to set as far as quick ball movement and being more efficient, etc., it's a little bit early to call it until we've got a bit more sample data to go from. But all signs pointing to more wins coming our way.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And there's nothing better than kicking 13 straight in set shots, which would be good. The first thing that we should probably get out of the way is the weather forecast. So 20 minutes before we jumped on here, it obviously can change. It said 75% over the CBD, obviously the MCG being, of course, in this magnificent city of Melbourne. I think that favours the Blues more so considering how good at contested ball they've been so far early in the year. But the positive from that is they might pull a north on us and go with all of these tools. It would be pretty stiff for them to drop Pitane or De Conning. They're not going to drop Curnow or McKay. But if they want to do that, we're not going to say no as Hawks fans. But I feel like Pitto would be stiff to miss out because he's been one of the better centre bounce ruckman in the league so far. So does the rain give them maybe more headaches than it does us?
So based on our experience at training and our knowledge of Pitto, how do you reckon we line up against him? And that's probably actually one of the best questions of the night. McAvoy's in, thanks, but do we bring back Maxi from his concussion, or do we stick with the noodle?
I think we have to stick with the noodle. For a couple of reasons. I mean, you can watch, and I wish we could have had it up, but good old StreamYard wasn't being nice from us. But Pitto was able to hit into space, and it's something that he's done really well over the first couple of weeks. Now, in the wet, you still need to hit it to space because a kick off the ground clearance is better than a big pack. So I think what the noodle's going to be able to do with that size advantage is at least nullify. Well, there you go. Cody Max won't be ready apparently, so that's good sign. He wasn't on the injury list, but we'll touch on that in a tick. But I think if we can nullify Pitto hitting it into space and make every clearance a 50-50 ball, that's all that we've got to be able to do. And Ned Reeves is currently number one in the competition for hit-out win percentage, but we are pretty low on the hit-out to advantage. But in the wet, it's a territory game, and it starts there. If Lynch is available, do you think you bring him back in?
Oh, it's a hard one. Like you said, they've both got different attributes. But like you said, maybe Ned Reeves might be the better matchup. But as far as that midfield setup goes, and like you said, hitting the space, I'm sure the midfield coach is Rob Harvey looking after that, and Mitchell himself will have some input as to the best way to negate them, taking advantage of their dominance in the previous couple of rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carlton are currently the third best tackling team in the competition, which is a really good start for them. And it's actually led by their forward 50 pressure. And the Hawks are, of course, the best rebound 50 scoring team in the league after 2 weeks. We were the best in the league, even if we only had last week. You take away North, everyone else's first 2 games versus just our Port game, we'd still be number 1 in the league. So flying there. It's all about navigating that pressure, and our back 6 looks the most settled in the competition. So it sounds probably a bit too simple as a point, but sometimes this can be a really easy game. If we keep it out of their forward half, we're going to have a massive chance. And as good as Corey Durden and Matty Owies might have looked, I'm happily backing in Blake Hardwick, Jack Scrimshaw, Sicily, and CJ, even though we did have a quiet one last week. So I'm confident in our back 6. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, we're well and truly happy with how the boys are going down back. But we haven't come against 3 talls, have we, in the forward line? Does that stretch us?
Well, we did, but North's 3 talls are equal to about 1.5. So
yeah. So I guess that's the big question. I guess it comes down to their delivery and into the forward line and how good our defence can go. And like you said, our movement from defence to attack is the best in the comp at the moment. So if we can repeat that, and I'm sure they've looked at our last couple of games and they'll be trying to stop that as well. So it's just a really interesting matchup, and I'm looking forward to a really good game.
Yeah, it's great that on a weekend that has the derby, as they would call it in WA, and a showdown. How good is that? They finally got the showdown on Friday night, and it's last versus second last. They've done really well over there in South Australia. They're flying. The game of the round's a traditional time slot on a Sunday. If it is sunny, if there's no water on the grass, I'm genuinely confident in our ball moving ability. I don't think after 2 games, ball movement is the sugar hit. Now, it could be things like motivation, fresh voice, all the things that all the media outlets want to talk about, but you don't go from 2 games of getting it in the back pocket and just going and playing on. I don't know our play on percentage, but the eye test tells us that stand rule is just working to our back 6's advantage the entire way. That doesn't go away after 2 weeks. So it is firmly on the halfback flankers, the wingers, and the midfield. That delivery inside forward 50, it kind of sounds like a broken record, is key, because if the forwards are going, hey, boys, once you actually deliver us the footy, we kick 13 straight from set shots, we're going to give us a chance to win the game. So how confident are we that this forward group, that last week wasn't a fluke when it comes to our delivery? Are you confident that we can give our forwards the supply they need?
I think so. I think if you look at it on paper, our forwards probably outweigh their backs. So providing the mids can give them, a better percentage of chance of getting the ball, then yeah, well and truly, I don't think we're going to be kicking 13 goals straight again. But if we can kick more goals and points, we're well and truly on our way to winning the match, I think.
Yeah, so again, sometimes this can seem like a really easy game. You look at Geelong kick 10-17 against Sydney, and the teams that aren't kicking straight are kicking themselves essentially out of the game. The Carlton key backs we talked about, and we'll talk about DGB and those boys in a tick, but they've got Jacob Wiedering, All-Australian defender from 2 years ago, should have been an All-Australian defender last year, but that's a conversation for another day. It looks like he's going to take Mitch Lewis. I think he's probably the best matchup there, so we're going to have to rely on our other forwards. Now, you've got Oscar McDonald, who in the air, calm down, Hawks fans, is handy. It's when the ball hits the ground do you start getting excited, maybe a little James Frawley style, where you kind of think this could go a bit anywhere. But it's the Mitch McGovern matchup that I think we've got to take advantage of, because he wants to peel off a bit like we would plan for Aliir. If Ben McAvoy does play majority forward, I think he's the matchup we've got to target. What do you think?
Well, it was interesting you said that. I was just thinking more of Wiedering being quite attacking at times and running off his player. Is Lewis going to be capable of playing that defensive role if he doesn't win the contest?
Well, it would be a really good way to round out his ability. I mean, he's kicked 8 goals in the opening 2 games, and he's flying. So if he's able to add a string to his bow to negate a character like Wiedering, because it's not like we've got no one else in the forward line. You know, it's not like North asking Nick Larkey to do it because their second highest goal scorer is me, I think, at this point in the season. So I think we've got the firepower. Gunston, Moore, Wingard, whether he plays or not, we'll talk about that as we go on. And, of course, our midfielders, Tom Mitchell likes getting forward as well. We've got other avenues to do it, but if I hear on the weekend someone from Carlton takes in at 6 intercept marks, I would much rather it be Oscar McDonald than Jacob Wiedering.
Yes, very true, very true. Do we go to what seems to be the question of the night? Let me find it. So we've got this. No change, please. Look, it's hard to change a winning team, but...
There is a bloke that came back from AFL. There we go.
Will Day. So looks like he's coming back.
Well, here's the thing. So our injury list, it's quite interesting because you look at a team like Essendon, couldn't happen to a better mob, but they're looking at their injury list like, oh, look at the names that are on here. Whereas we need to look at our injury list and we need to know who's not on there. So Chad Wingard is a test. I expect him to be okay with the extra day break going from a Saturday to a Sunday. Lockie Bramble is still to be confirmed, so we're going to assume that's at least a month. So fingers crossed he'll be back. We talked about it for the Melbourne game in round 6. And Connor Downey is a week away. Would like to see his development, but he's not a best 23 player. So not only is Will Day not on that injury list, and I do want to talk about Wilbur, Jarman Impey isn't on that injury list either, which really fascinates me. Surely it's a VFL game first until he comes back in, but we are in an extraordinary place where if Chad is right to go, we have one best 23 player on our injury list, and what a start that is for Sam Mitchell.
Tell you what, I'd be interested to know if Impey has actually played a VFL game, because he would normally be straight into the seniors.
He would, and what a good problem to have. Incredible problem to have. But does the opposition matter? Do you think that he would be playing VFL if we were playing... Oh, I don't want to pick on anyone here. We'll go with North because they've been traditionally the sort of bottom team. But if it was North this week, do you think we'd just go, look, we don't really need to rush him back in for this game so he can play VFL minutes? Do you think playing Carlton has an effect?
Potential. I think it all comes down to whether he's, 90 or 95 or 85% as to how much you rush him back into the team. Yes, we want him back in. He's in our best 22. So, but look, we won last week convincingly. Do we need him or do we want him? I
yes.
think, yeah, that's what it comes down to. And yeah, I think Hawthorn's typically always plays on the safe side, hence Day playing a couple of games in the 2. So it's interesting, yeah. I would like him back in, but there's no need to rush it. Yeah, we're pretty well settled with the team, and it's getting more games into some kids like Finn McGuinness, because he's potentially going to be one of the casualties, isn't he?
Well, yeah, and just before we get there, so Jacobs pointed out if Oscar McDonald is out, which does remind me he does have a back problem, and Carlton actually did confirm that he wouldn't play. So that's either Lewis Young or Lockie Plowman, and we do like to be respectful on here, but if we're being honest, I would much rather have Lewis Young or Lockie Plowman play on one of our tools than Oscar McDonald, especially in the air. So kind of a win-win there for the Hawks. But yeah, I think Jars goes to the VFL. I hope they play him at halfback in the VFL and then half forward when he comes back into the senior side. Mainly and purely halfback, he'll get more of the footy. We've actually got Carlton in all 3 games this week. So the seniors Sunday, and we've actually got the VFLW and VFL doubleheader at Box Hill, and they're both against Carlton as well. That starts at 12:30, the VFLW, and then 3 o'clock is the VFL. So although that does overlap with the Hawks game, if you can't get to the Hawks game, jump down to Box Hill City Oval to support the girls and the guys on the day as well, because of course it's a lot easier to watch a replay of the Hawks game once we know the result than it is to watch the VFL and VFLW. So get down there if you can, but I'd love to see Jars just get as much of the footy as he can and then bring him in, but that's probably a next week problem. Will Day's got to come back in. If Wingard's not fit, it's probably the easy swap there, and we just play Harry Morrison forward. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yep, that's a good change up.
And if Wingard is fit to go, is it Finn? Sorry, I'll let you go.
Now, talking about those scheduling, the VFL game starts before the AFL game, unlike last week where we had the luxury of taking a few emergencies across and flying them back before the game starts. So we're sort of restricted as soon as they take the field, we're stuck with our emergency. So be interesting to see who they want to play in the VFL this week versus having a week off potentially.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. So we know Wilbur's coming back in. So put your team management hat on, Chris. If Wingard is fit, is it Finn McGuinness who misses out, or does Phillips miss out and we make someone else the sub? What do you think? I think they're the two most obvious options.
So Phillips, what's he been emergency twice and played basically a half and 3/4 of a game or two halves?
And been good, Flip, which surprises me because he doesn't scream elite sub, but he had 17 touches in round one, and he was, I think, third for sprint efforts on Saturday night, and he only played half the game. So you could argue he was fresher, but the other players had a head start on him.
Wary of them making a person a sub too many times, but he has got game time. But at the same time, it's a tough one. I can see. I don't know that they'll push him down to VFL. And I'm wondering whether he might be an emergency, not a sub, if they don't play him. I'm just wondering if Sam's giving Finn McGuinness, he's just gone to Finn at the start of the season. I'm giving you 6 weeks. Don't worry, you're in the side, you're selected. If you make mistakes, don't worry about it. You've got a game. So I'm wondering if it's some sort of deal like that and he's committed to playing him just to give him a boost of confidence. So it's harsh to say it's going to be him. And like you said, you've still got Howe and guys like that who potentially are walk-ins too. So it's hard to know what the coaching staff are thinking, to be honest.
I get the feeling that Chad is going to be managed, but it'll be that. Yeah. I think that might be the way they go if McGuinness is promised that. Like he has. So we've had a few comments pop up. Let's get to Carlton, the opposition analysis. And as much as their forward line's been firing, it's been thanks to that midfield depth. And they haven't even played their full midfield group. They had Sam Walsh obviously miss round one and then Adam Chera miss round two. But they're expected to have a full fit midfield. So that is going to be Sam Walsh, Patrick Cripps, Adam Chera, George Hewitt, Matt Kennedy as well, who could be starting the year on 5 Brownlow votes or 4 Brownlow votes, if you can believe that, because Cripps has probably got the 3s in both games as well. So that's a quality midfield that runs deep. And the question is, how do we stop them? I feel like, there you go. Do we tag Cripps? That was going to be my exact answer. I think the answer is yes and no. Chris Fagan spoke after the Brisbane Essendon game on the job that Jared Berry did to Zach Merritt, which wasn't a tag, it was a follow. So kind of the caravan role, you just hitch a ride on the back of those boys. But if the footy is there, you've still got to go for it, which ironically, George Hewitt did so well for Sydney before he became a Blue. I said last week that Connor Nash should run with Ollie Wines, and he didn't do it enough for me to justify being correct, but he did stay with him at stoppage a lot of the time that he was there. Do we go Nash in that midfield? Do we give the job to a Finn McGuinness? Do you bring in a Dan Howe? Because it needs to be one of these taller midfielders that can go with him, because as much as Cripper is a star, the one thing he's got against him is his running ability and his speed off the mark, which ironically, Matt Randell said at the time, that's why Collingwood didn't draft Patrick Cripps as a top 10 pick, because he couldn't run. So that worked out really well for him. But what do we do?
I think we have to tag him. I think he's absolutely on fire, and to nullify him, and whether it be get him down to 20 possessions or 25, and actually make them really hard contested possessions where he's not effective. I think that's where you start. If he's too good and he's getting off the leash, then maybe you go to tag someone else potentially, and just like you said, maybe it's more of a run with roll rather than a hard tag. But I think the job goes to Nashy first, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Mainly because Nash has got the most centre bounce, probably experience in the last 12 months than Howe or McGuinness. If Finn does play, I'd really like him to go to Jack Silvani and just go, because Jack's a weird one for me, because a lot of non-Carlton fans are probably, and as we all are sitting here, but would probably go, really? Jack. But what I think Carlton are trying to do with Jack is a lot what Adelaide tried to do with Tom Lynch in that 2017 season, where he is that half-forward flanker, the link up between the midfield and the forward line. Jack's pretty good overhead, pretty athletic on the ground. I think if Finn can go to him and shut him down, they might lose a lot of that ability to get easy ball inside 50. I don't think putting Finn at 20 centre bounces is going to do the best thing for him. Daniel Lair, I have a feeling that Sam might not be a tagging coach, and that's okay. That's all right, but he'll still need the respect for everyone that goes next to him. It could just be as simple as Connor Nash lines up with him at every centre bounce, and then we let the chips fall where they may. But we lost the clearances by 24 last week and still won the game by 11 goals. So whilst it is a priority, it might not be the reason that we lose if that happens to be the result.
Yeah, if we don't go for a hard tag, maybe they just go head-to-head. But at the same time, all midfielders need to be accountable. So if we don't win the ball, they've all got to be tackling. They've all got to be defending, guarding space, doing all the things to help the team. So, yeah, and if we win the ball, all good. We're kicking it down forward to Lewis and Gunston, and we're scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. So George Hewitt finished second in Sydney's best and fairest in 2020. Sam Walsh won the Carlton's best and fairest in 2021. Last year he did. Paddy Cripps, as we know, All-Australian and all that. And if you're thinking, wow, that's enough, Matt Kennedy was a top 10 pick before he came. Top first round pick before he came to Carlton. And Adam Chera was a pick 5. So Carlton have got the quality, but I don't think they've come up against the opposition that they would have expected in the first 2 rounds. Richmond's midfield, call it what you like. I'm going to go with not very dynamic. Who did they play last week? Carlton. The Bulldogs. The Bulldogs got smacked in round 1 by Melbourne. Carlton did the same thing. Their ability to walk the ball out of the front of a clearance, as much as a tag is going to be a good idea, I think we need to have a really disciplined sweeper, which is actually the role that Tom Phillips played when he came on the ground last week. But we can't let them. I would rather see Patrick Cripps kick the ball around his body to get a clearance than for him to get that quick handball out to a Walsh or to a Chera who can then deliver the ball inside 50. Do you think that we can adopt a sweeper, and do you think that should be a bigger body like Jaeger or Jimmy Warple, or do you think we go, maybe our dynamic player who might be able to chase down, a Chera or a Walsh if they get off the chain? How do you think we should go about it?
Yeah, like you said, Warple's a good candidate. John Newcomb, I think, is a tackling beast. Remember going back to his first game when he broke the tackling record for a first gamer. So we've got people who could potentially do that role. Like you said, Phillips could be that role. So maybe he does start the game. It's just really interesting to see which way Sammy goes. It's really hard. I'd hate to be in his position, and I'd hate to be the guys who get tapped on the shoulder and say, sorry, you're not playing this week. It seems to be, well, we haven't really come up against such a quality midfield in a long time, have we, really? So, but let's just hope our look, if McAvoy might play more time in the ruck and actually get the better of it. So it might be them trying to negate us. It's just
it is a good point. And when you think of good two-way midfielders in the competition, I mean, Sam Walsh is probably one of the better ones, but maybe not in a tackling way, more of an endurance way. So maybe that's the way to go. That's probably a role that George Hewitt would do. I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of ran with Mitchell the way we want, a Nash or a Newcomb or someone to run with Cripps. So it might just end up becoming a 1v1 in that midfield where we let someone go, and whether that's a Warple or a Mira or something like that. Let's go to the forward line.
If you're talking about speed, it might be something, and endurance, it might be something that they might throw at Ward, even though he's coming up for his 3rd game.
Yeah.
They might just go, here's your role. Let's see how you go.
Well, what I'd love with that, and we saw Stewie Dew, the Premiership Hawk hero, as we know, he did that with Matt Rowell last week, who sent him to Clayton Oliver for patches and then Christian Petrarca, and the role was to tag, see what he could do, but Matt Rowell would have taken so much about that. I see, and I said it when we drafted him, I see so much of Sam Walsh in Josh Ward, his ability to two-way run, and I'm not saying Ward's going to get 30 Brownlow votes in 2 years or anything like that, but you see these similarities. So to be able to, I think if Josh Ward's not coming off the ground thinking, I want to be and contribute as much as I can like Sam Walsh does to Carlton, I think that's a good way to go. And hopefully around the ground we see that matchup, because Sure, is Sam Walsh going to take down Joshy? Yes. Let's be honest. On paper, it would take a monumental effort for Josh Ward to play a better game than Sam Walsh this week. We love the Hawks. Sometimes we just got to be honest. But if he can walk off the ground and get that experience, and it's the best thing for him, I agree with you. I say we go for it. Let's get to the forward line because Harry McKay and Charlie Curnow combined for 9 goals on the weekend. Admittedly, it was against the Dogs, who have got Alex Keith, who it is a nice key back at times, but he's a number 2, and their other key defenders are just, let's be honest, just not that good at the moment. So Frost to Curnow looks like the way it goes because Frosty's got the athletic ability. So the question becomes, do we send DGB to Harry McKay, or do we give that job to Sicily, or does Kyle Hartigan come back in to try and neglect and take down last year's common medalist? Where do you stand on that?
I think there's been a bit of a message with Hartigan playing in the 2, so I reckon he'll stay there for this matchup, and they'll back in Denver, and like you said, Sicily will get the job done between the 2 of them.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, they'll figure it out at some point, which is great. And these aren't impenetrable guys. They only kicked a goal between them in round 1 against Richmond. Scary part about that is they then beat Richmond that night. So the back 6 is definitely going to be on the back foot. How are we going for comments here, man?
Just waiting for a bit of the forward line comments to start rolling through. I don't think McKay Curnow will kick as many this weekend with our strong defence, which we agree with that. And if they do kick 9 against us between them, we're probably losing the game.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be, we're not going to be able to give them many shots. And sometimes if they pull off a miraculous goal from the boundary, you just got to put up with that. We just can't let them get in that V, if you will, and just kick easy goals. So McKay will swallow DGB whole. He might. He's a scarily big boy, Harry McKay. But at some point in his career, Denver's probably going to have to play on these guys. Is it going to be such a big deal if we're not projected to be this great team for Denver to get that experience? There is a part of me that says I'd love to see it. And if we're being honest, we might get McKay reported for punching Denver because he's that kind of character.
What's the chances they might throw big boy down back as the big body?
And then it would have to be for the whole game.
The whole game, you reckon?
Yeah, it would have to be because if he goes to centre half back, it probably would have to be on McKay. And McKay's not that guy that's going to go into the ruck and go with that. So if they do that and put McAvoy on McKay, Frost on Curnow, then you'd probably look at DJB as their resting ruckman, which is probably going to be more Tom DeConning anyway. And that would be an almightily good matchup. Both of those boys like flying at the footy as well. So that's probably the idea of the night. I like it.
Tim was thinking the same as me. I did actually say that before I seen your comment, but
I'm backing Tim in there. I'm backing Tim in there that he's gotten in there first, so he's done beautifully there. I like it.
Thanks, mate.
That's all right.
All right, forward line. What else? So we've got the Gunston and Bruest and other small Maury. Who else? What are we going with down forward? Like you said, he's the questionable one, isn't he? So
yeah, he is the questionable one, and Harry Morrison's more than capable of being a threat up forward. He basically won us a game up in Sydney off his own boot, essentially, with a couple of goals there in that last quarter that got the job done. So I think we're pretty spoilt for choice, but it is all about that delivery inside 50 because you look at Mitch, who's got beautiful hands, and Jack one-on-one, old back gunners in one-on-one against any defender in the competition. And I think Hawthorn fans should as well. But it doesn't matter how good you are in a one-on-one contest. You still need the ball kicked to your advantage, even if it is a 55-45 split between the forward and the defender. It's pretty hard to take a mark when the ball's not kicked to your advantage. So it's on our Hawks boys as we move forward. But we didn't kick the ball perfectly into our forward line. You can look at the Bruest and Connor Nash passes, but there were plenty of balls that hit the ground that we took advantage of as well. If we can just get the space and don't let the Blues work back in numbers, we can go for it. And I hope Dylan Moore plays on Adam Sard because as much as Sard can kill you on the transition, you can't teach footy IQ. Dylan Moore's got it in spades and Adam Sard goes to water when he's in a one-on-one contest. So if I was Dylan Moore, I'd probably be going down that path.
If we were to throw that left centre Jarman Impey straight into the team with his pace, he would be a great match, wouldn't he?
Yeah, that's got probably Cyril v Jetta on the MCG Wing 2.0, hopefully with a better result. I'm sorry for even bringing it up, Hawks fans. That's my fault. Yeah, that would be amazing to see. And yeah, I'm talking myself into this. I think this is really good.
Excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hawks fans, who's tipping us? Who has got the guts in their competitions? Like if you're in a tipping competition, whether it's with ESPN or Supercoach or Fantasy or wherever you do your tipping, is anyone brave enough to tip us, and by how much? Or are we going to do the reverse jinx and all tip the Blues like I've tipped against us in the last 2 weeks and we're 2-0? Absolutely beautifully. Let us know in the comments while we get. Chris, how confident are you of a win? Have you talked yourself into tipping us officially?
Mate, I did it today and I put us in.
He has.
I do change it from time to time, but that was just my gut feeling at the time when I entered my tips. So live or die by the sword. I think at the time on ESPN we had about 23% of the votes for.
That's pretty good. That's not pretty good, and we're pretty rank outsiders in the game as well. Not that we're saying anything like that, but the Hawks not getting respect, mate. We're pretty used to that. So Hawks fans, get your tips in. Hawks by 4, I'm seeing there by Troy. That's what we love. I don't need that kind of heart palpitation, Troy, but if it's that close, I'm glad we'll be winning it. I'm going to take one for the team, Hawks fans. I am going to tip the Blues because I've tipped Port and I tipped North. So, you know what? It's working until I know otherwise. Hawks by 14, Mitch Lewis to kick 6. That would be outstanding. If someone had told me more to kick 5, if he's on Adam Sard, he might actually do it. Sardi's a really good transition defender, but one-on-one. Hawks can win, Jeff. They absolutely can, mate, and we're hoping that they will. Hawks by 33. I like it. I like the goal-kicking accuracy, faith that our fans have got close. But the Blues have too much class. That's an interesting take. Fred, happy to have you here. I've seen a couple of comments saying that they missed you, so we're glad you're here as well. I feel like if the Blues do beat us, the class conversation is an interesting one. I feel like it would be probably more grunt around the ball and all that. Hawks for a 3-0 start. I'd love to know when the last time we were 3-0. Could it have been 2014? I reckon we beat Brisbane in round 1. I'm not going to go through the old fixture, but that would be a long time. But plenty of Hawks fans tipping us, which is what we like.
Confidence. And talking about that I think that is what we've started the season so well. I think Sam's built confidence within the players, and when you're confident, you win. So let's hope we can keep that rolling. Yeah,
we're absolutely not going to complain about that. Bruest to kick 4. I really hope it's.
There's a lot of tips in the 20s here.
Yeah, a lot of bags as well, which we like to see. The full forwards back in flight, but who would have thought after round 2, not only would we be top of the ladder, but Mitch Lewis and Isaac Heaney are tied for the Coleman medal. It truly is a wonderful time in footy. Fans,
you didn't give us a margin. You've tipped Carlton, but didn't give us a margin.
Oh, I don't want it to be close, but I don't want to tip a blowout, so I'll say 2 goals, Blue Baggers.
2 goals.
And of course, if we win, I'm not tipping the Hawks for the rest of the year, guys, and that's going to be as simple as that, and we'll keep on winning. So if we get any last comments in, man, we'll be happy to answer them, but I reckon we might be starting to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Hawks fans, if you are going to the game also, let us know if you're able to get along. That would be awesome. Fantastic. Find out how many of us are going to be there. Chris, are you going to be able to make it down there, man?
That's the intention at this stage. One of my kids had surgery during the week, so his walking capacity could be limited. If he's good to go, we'll be there for sure.
Fingers crossed. So there's 4 on the injury list now, mate, but we're praying that he's up and about and back to his best as quickly as possible. I'm the same in the sense of that is the intention, but for vastly different reasons. Lewis 3, Gunston 3, Moore 2, Bruce 2, Hawks win. Jeez, yes, please.
Yeah. Every day.
Everything about that. It is all about who lacks polish. Fred there, I completely agree. Mate, I reckon you'll be there, Sam. Fantastic. That's all right. We've even got a score prediction down there, which I like. 20 goals, 3. I'll tell you what, there's no rain on that day. Let me tell you. It ain't raining at the G with that scoreline.
33
but
points.
I like it.
Bring it on. And again, another score above 100. So we need to keep, I think that's Sam's, game plan to be scoring 100 plus every game. So makes sense.
Yeah, there's a bit of Malcolm Blight in that, who used to say as coach of Geelong, we'll back ourselves to kick 17 goals and back ourselves to stop you from kicking 16. So it's a good way to look at the game. It can be a simple game sometimes, but I reckon we're just about ready to wrap up. Chris, what do you reckon?
Yeah, mate. Talking about that, we are the best defensive team in the league at the moment. So let's
know.
hope we can maintain that. We didn't mention that today.
Yeah, we've only conceded 114 points for the year and kicked just a tick under 200 at this stage, but we are genuinely flying. So, Hawks fans, we're going to wrap this up with a special thanks to Base Compression. For 20% off Base Compression athletic gear, you can visit basecompression.com/talkinghawks. If I've got that right off the top of my head, I'm going to be really impressed, but the link will be in the description on YouTube. Chris, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Hawks fans, I hope we can get there in spades regardless of the weather. The expected crowd I saw on Twitter was about 52,000. I reckon we can smash that and get up towards 60. I hope the Hawks have a win. We will be reviewing the game. Hopefully, Chris will definitely, one of us will be here, or maybe both of us. We'll see how we go, but that should be on Monday as well. We are working to do separate review and preview. Some weeks is going to be harder than the others, but if you subscribe to us on YouTube and get your mates to follow us on Facebook, you can get all of your updates there. Chris, it's been a pleasure as always, mate, and we'll see you in the review. See you, Hawks fans. Hope we have a win and start the year 3-0. See you later.
Cheers, guys. See ya.